Hey, special educators. Welcome to Teach Taskbox Inspire, the podcast dedicated to making your job as a special education teacher easier by making your instruction more fun for you and your students. Inside each episode, you'll learn how to get the most use out of your task boxes in the classroom. I'm your host, Lisa Holiday from Chalkboard Superhero, a veteran special education teacher passionate about empowering you with purposeful teaching strategies, helpful tips and tricks, and other classroom management tools that will help you thrive in your role. Let's get started with today's episode. Hey there, special educators, and welcome back to another episode of Teach Taskbox Inspire. I'm your host, Lisa Holiday, and today we're diving into a topic that is near and dear to my heart and really is the heart of all of our work as special education teachers, building strong relationships with family. We all know that the partnership between home and school is crucial for our students' success. But how do we foster that connection in a way that's meaningful and effective? You have to have a plan in place. You can't just dive into the school year and not really know how this is all going to play out. You have to have a plan. I want you to actively think about how you are going to build that strong relationship with families for each student on your caseload. Let's explore 3 key strategies that can help you strengthen those relationships and really create a supportive, collaborative environment for your students. First, let's talk about effective communication with parents or caregivers. Communication is absolutely the foundation of any relationship, especially in special education. It's even more critical because our students often have unique needs and their families are really our greatest allies in understanding all of those needs. Most of the time, there are some parents where I'm like, maybe not. But if you're new here, you may not know that I have a son with Down syndrome, and so I get to wear that mama hat too. I know all too well what it means to be on the other side of that table. So building the communication from home to school can really make all of the difference in the world. So really, there are 3 key points. Number 1, regular updates. One of the most effective ways to keep communication lines open is providing regular updates. This could be through a weekly email, a daily communication notebook, or even quick phone calls. The key is consistency. When parents know that they can count on you for regular updates, it builds trust and keeps everyone on the same page. So I went through this a lot with Jacob. I remember his first teacher, and she was like, we don't really do communication like that. Now, number 1, he was nonverbal in kindergarten, and he didn't have a way to tell me what was going on at home. I couldn't ask him about his school day. We would all sit at the table for dinner, and we would go around the table and ask, how your day was. And his older sister, would go on and on about 2nd grade, and he would say, me, me, me. And we would have no idea what went on for the day. And so we had a meeting and talked in depth about how those regular updates and posts are what I count on to have meaningful conversations with Jacob when he got home, especially pictures. If there was pictures that came home once a day, once a week, it was everything that I needed to know that he was safe, to know that he was cared for, to understand what his school day looked like. I can't explain that enough. Pictures and video sharing is so essential. Now, I know not everyone has time to do this, but it is really important. After I got those messages every single day or communication notebook every day, I really didn't care that much about needing it every day. I knew they loved him. I knew I can count on those teachers. So it is really important, especially in the beginning, to have those regular updates until the trust is built. Number 2, two-way communication. Remember, communication isn't just about sharing information. It's about listening too. I want you to make sure that you're creating opportunities for parents to kind of share their insights, their concerns, their questions. Where do they see their child next year? Where do they see their child in 5 years? If you're at the high school level, which I often was, I would often say, where do you want to see them after they exit high school? Where is the path that we need to get to? And having that communication, that open communication between the parent and the teacher is so important so that the parents have an understanding that we also care where they're going at the end of the year. So whether it's during parent-teacher conferences, during those IEP meetings, or any informal chats, make it clear that those parents' voices are heard and valued, and to make sure that anything that they say is essential to the success of their child. And number 3, not a lot of people understand this, but cultural sensitivity. I want you to be mindful of those cultural differences that may impact communication. Families come from a very diverse background, so they might have different perspectives on education or different perspectives on disability and communication. So taking that time to understand these differences is going to help you with that student as well. All right, the second strategy I have is involving families in the IEP process and goal setting. This is going to strengthen your relationship with that family. I know that the IEP process can be overwhelming for both parents and special education teachers, especially if you are a new special education teacher, but our role is to guide parents kind of through it and ensure that they feel like active participants in their child's education. So here's 3 things I want you to focus on. Number 1, pre-meeting prep. It is essential and best practice if you are meeting with the parents before that IEP meeting. Reach out to the parents, explain what to expect, explain terminology, share the agenda, the goals that you might be considering, maybe any data that you'll be discussing. This gives them time to kind of process the information and come to the meeting prepared with their thoughts and questions. I, as always best practice, make sure that my families have at least the draft of the IEP at least 3 days before the actual meeting so that they have a chance to kind of breeze through it, and then we can chat about it before the IEP meeting. Number 2 is that collaborative goal setting. So during these meetings that you have with these families, emphasize that the IEP goals are a team effort. Invite parents to share their priorities for their child and kind of work together to set goals that reflect both the school and the family's perspective. When parents feel like that they have a say in their child's education, they're a lot more likely to be engaged and supportive. And the last one is follow up. After the IEP meeting, follow up with the parents to make sure that they understand the plan and they feel comfortable with it. Provide them a printed copy of the final IEP. You could even highlight key points or even offer to answer any lingering questions they might have. I have met so many parents where all of these terms is so beyond their scope that they have no idea. It's all German to them. And so I like to sit down and say, this is kind of the program that your student or that your child is going through. So this follow-up can make a big difference in how parents feel and how they're feeling supported. All right, my third and final strategy is providing consistent support and updates on student progress. This is kind of what I see most special education teachers let fall to the wayside. So beyond progress reports. So beyond the IEP, it's important to keep parents informed about their child's day-to-day progress and challenges. This helps maintain that strong connection and ensures that any issues are addressed promptly. So here's where we get to the progress reports. You are going to be sending these progress reports every time you send out, usually in every district that I've worked in, we're sending out those progress reports on the IEP anytime that report cards come out. So it's usually pretty formal and we kind of send us a quick note and it has little goals that we are reporting on. And so this is kind of the problem I'm seeing for my own son. So by the time, 10 weeks goes by and I realize that my child is behind on a lot of things and I'm reading the reports, it's almost too late. I feel like, I wish I would have known, 7 weeks ago that he was not picking up on the sight words. I wish I knew 7 weeks ago that he wasn't getting his math facts down. Do you know what I mean? So we have to make progress reporting a little bit more regular and frequent so that we can make sure that parents are on board and parents are understanding where their child is. So do it more often than when report cards go home. Number 2 is celebrating successes. So don't forget to share the great news. Parents love hearing about their child's successes, no matter how small, whether it's a new skill that's mastered, or maybe they're showing some positive behavior. Maybe they've made a friend on the playground or a personal best that child has. Celebrating these moments with parents reinforces that partnership and keeps the focus on students' growth. I can't tell you how many times I've had, especially therapies. I have been so blessed with my son to have the most amazing speech therapist, physical therapist, occupational therapist. I cannot complain about one single one. They send me videos and pictures constantly to show the progress, especially speech, because it's often hard for me to understand in written form what she's working on with Jacob. And so when she sends me a video, I can mimic those lessons at home and try to get, the k sound or any sound that he's like struggling with. I'm able to copy that lesson. Now, of course, there's some times where he's like, no, mommy, you're the mommy, not the teacher. And he hates that. So I often have to kind of back away when he tells me, no, you have to, cuddle with me. It's not time for teacher time. Anyways, so the last thing I'm going to talk to you about is problem solving together. When challenges arrive, most often than not, it's some behavior that's kind of popped up. Involve the parents in this problem solving. Reach out to discuss potential solutions or strategies that they might have tried at home. So this not only helps you find effective interventions, but also empowers parents to use similar strategies at home that maybe they hadn't thought of. So this is just creating that consistent support system for that student, if that makes sense. So that's why this specific topic is so completely near and dear to my heart, because I am often sitting on the other side. Whenever he moves on to another grade, I'm constantly fighting with teachers and special educators or even therapists on knowing what's going on at school, more communication. And I know it seems silly, but the more communication I have with the school, the better overall he's going to be, because I use that information at home as well. So building these strong relationships with families is going to take time and effort, but the rewards are so worth it. When parents and teachers work together, students benefit from a unified support system that helps them thrive both in and out of the classroom. So thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I really hope these strategies give you some fresh ideas for strengthening that partnership with your students' families. Until next time, guys, bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Teach, Taskbox, Inspire. I hope you've gained some tips and motivation to fuel your week ahead. If you're ready to explore more strategies for empowering your students as independent learners, be sure to dive into my free training at chalkboardsuperhero.com/training. And don't keep all this knowledge to yourself. Share this episode with your special education teacher friends who could use some motivation and inspiration. One more thing before you go. If you're finding this podcast helpful and want to show support, head to Apple Podcasts and leave your rating and review. Until next time, keep teaching, taskboxing, and inspiring.